Like the song says, we all want to change the world, and sometimes I get frustrated in my attempts to do that. But I just finished reading a really amazing book that gave me some insights into how it might more well be possible. Drex here from Drex Factor Poise, sharing with you the love of poise spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. And today I'm getting a little bit off of the beaten path of flow arts, but still talking about brainy stuff, and namely, how we get people to change their minds. But before we dive in, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Fire Mecca, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterra Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultra Poi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all of these awesome companies and the work that they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. And special thanks to the non-business friend of the channel, Pekka Pekkonen. Thank you so much for supporting my channel, my work, and my mission. Y'all, it is cooking today in DC. We are up in the 90s with something like 57% humidity, so I'm not going to make this as long as I normally would, if for no other reason than I'm going to be sweating to the oldies here pretty soon. But I just finished reading this really fantastic book called How Minds Change by a guy named David McRaney, and I'm still digesting in my head some of the stuff that he dropped in this book, not the least of which because it challenges a lot of my assumptions about how exactly we engage in discussions about a variety of issues, and more importantly, how we actually affect real change. Now, this was probably one of the most difficult books that I have read since Thinking Fast and Slow, and a big part of the reason was a lot of it challenged my own thinking. So the theory of change that I've been operating from these past few years has kind of revolved around two specific pillars. One of which is rationality. That is, we put together a well-reasoned argument based heavily on the facts at hand, and that hopefully is digestible enough that it can become a meme in and of itself and is easily passed from person to person. The second is that we make demonstrations of things. That is, when there is an event that happens, or a person, place, or thing where the particular issues that are involved in these individual kind of arguments come up, that we then go ahead and make a lot of noise around them. And interestingly enough, after reading this book, I think maybe both of these pillars are crumbling down in my head. So the book basically consists of the author going around and interviewing several people, some of whom are researchers in the field of cognitive psychology and specifically work on the question of how we get people to change their minds. Others are people that have changed their minds, people that at one point were members of the Westboro Baptist Church, or were 9/11 conspiracy theorists, or what have you, and specifically asking them what the process was by which they left those belief systems and communities and came to a new place of understanding. Kind of fascinating. I've got three major takeaways from the book that really were unexpected to me, and I'd like to outline to you what exactly the book says actually is the method by which you can get people to change their minds. All right, so the first major takeaway for me was that a lot of public debate, and especially a lot of online debate, is extremely counterproductive. It doesn't really exist in a place wherein people are able to have a clash of ideas and move the needle back and forth, so much as frequently it becomes more of a place where people publicly identify an opinion that becomes kind of an in-group identifier. That is, somebody will say something and somebody else will say, I agree with that, and they recognize that they are in community with each other for that reason. Which is not to say that debate cannot produce greater understanding or move the needle back and forth. It's just that it tends to happen in very specialized cases. Namely, cases wherein experts in a particular field are debating back and forth the information that they have at hand and arguing over interpretations of it. You tend to have a prerequisite set of specialized knowledge in order to engage in these situations, because you have to come into it being willing to say, hey, I have been presented with evidence that this position is incorrect, and thus I'm going to move my position on it, which many of us don't. They've done brain scans of people being presented information that runs contrary to their deeply held beliefs, and it actually shows up in their brain almost literally as being physically in pain. This is just a human thing. We have a degree of resistance to changing our ideas about things, and as it turns out, there's a lot of reasons why that's not such a bad thing for a social primate to have going on in their brains. And that brings us to interesting takeaway number 2. So here's the thing. Most of the time when we ask people to change their opinions on things, most of the time when we ask people to change their ideas, what we think we are doing is ushering them into a new understanding of the world and an improved world for everybody. And what we fail to understand in most of those cases is that what we're actually asking them to do is sign up to be treated as a scapegoat by people that they have been considering their friends, family, and perhaps coworkers. We are asking people essentially to give up social ties, which when we, once again, are social primates, that is asking a lot of people. It very literally is asking them to do one of the most painful things that human beings can receive. Like, it's kind of fascinating. One of the stories that's shared in the book is about a young man who was in the Westboro Baptist Church and eventually left due to medical reasons. Namely, he had a very serious medical problem that he was unable to seek treatment for because seeking treatment for it ran counter to the church's beliefs. So after he had been excommunicated, he finally reached a point where he had no more community, and it was only then that he was receptive to the fact that many of the teachings of the Westboro Baptist Church are quite hateful, and he was able to change the way that he looked at the world and many of the specific tenets of that faith. It was only after he'd already lost that community that he became capable of opening his mind to those other possibilities. And the final takeaway, and one which became oddly timely as I was reading this book, is that more than anything else, people are incredibly sensitive to being shamed. That is, those moments when we think that we are creating a moment of demonstration that this is bad and people who do this are bad, very frequently has the opposite effect to the one that we intended. Namely, people, when they feel that amount of shame, will then say that the people making them feel that shame are the bad ones. This is painful. I don't want to go through this. I will admit, historically, I have been one of those people that says, well, you know, get over it. Deal with the shame. Work through the shame. Thing is, though, all of us are bad at this. Every single one of us hate feeling shame, and it is very, very difficult for any one of us to work through. So, in a lot of ways, asking that somebody just deal with that is kind of unempathetic. And don't get me wrong, there are many, many, many situations in which a person has to just work through the shame that they are experiencing as a result of doing harm to another person. But when we kind of ask people to do that without understanding what it is that we're really asking from them, or even recognizing the degree to which we avoid doing that ourselves, well, it kind of creates a scenario where people are going to be very, very heatedly arguing and not a lot is going to come out of it. Now, do bear in mind that this is just my summary and it is an imprecise one. The book presents no less than 3 specific approaches to being able to change people's minds, and as it turns out, each of them works in slightly different circumstances and for slightly different purposes. But overall, the 6 steps I'm about to outline are a pretty good rough idea of what that process looks like. So step 1 is, if you're going to engage in one of these discussions, you first have to open up a rapport with the person. And this is really, really important because you have to establish some measure of trust. To do that, you need to make clear to them that you have no intentions of shaming or humiliating them, and you actually have to follow through on that promise. That is the only way that they're going to be vulnerable enough to be able to open up and share with you. Number 2, you ask them to present a claim. Perhaps it is a position on a controversial issue. Perhaps it is a deeply held opinion or belief. After they present that claim, it's time to start examining it. And how do we do this? Well, that brings us to step 3, which is that we ask them to give us a degree of certainty that they have in this claim. Have them express it as a percentage. You want to ask them why they assigned that specific percentage to it. If they assigned a relatively low percentage, why the low percentage? If they assign the high percentage, then it's time to move on to step 4. So step 4 in this is to specifically ask them what their reasons are for having that level of confidence in the claim. What evidence do they have to back that up? What experiences do they have that have contributed to that belief? And now, with the claim delivered, with their level of confidence established, and with their reasons for that level of confidence established, believe it or not, the next step is you try and repeat back to them what you understand of their position and why they have it in your own words. And you ask them if your restatement of that opinion and the reasons for it are accurate. If they disagree that the way you have characterized their position is accurate, ask them for clarification and take in their feedback and keep on working until they are happy with you expressing their opinion and the reasons for it in your own language. And now the final step, believe it or not, it's that you wrap things up. You thank them for their time and you send them off on their merry way. Why? Because quite frankly, the purpose of this isn't necessarily to bombard them with a counter argument or rebut any of their particular points, but to kind of ask them how they've arrived at where they have. And in a lot of cases, in trying to outline their position to somebody else, they're going to discover that one or more reasons that they have to hold the opinion that they do might not be as solid as they originally thought. But, and here's the real key, they have to get there by themselves. You cannot tell them they're wrong. You cannot tell them they have placed too much confidence in a specific piece of evidence. They have to arrive there themselves or it doesn't work. And I know this is deeply unsatisfying because it flies in the face of so much of what we want to believe about how progress is made and how the human mind works. Of course, there are some variations in this depending upon which specific technique is being employed. In some cases, there will be moments where the interviewer asks a person, can you remember a time in your life before you came to this position and what it was that specifically got you there? And or they might present an experience from somebody who is on the opposite side of that particular position. That is, their life has been impacted by it and why. But yeah, it doesn't really necessarily involve directly arguing with their conclusions or their reasons for them. So I will admit, this is really, really tough for me, but I will also say the book makes a really compelling argument and it sits on a really good body of research. The problem is, of course, that this is a technique that takes a very long time, usually multiple interventions with a person, and it takes an enormous amount of attention and energy to make work. Also, it does need to be said that this is an imprecise summary of the book itself. I don't have the author to talk to double check and see, hey, am I presenting your conclusions correctly here? So if you take away nothing else from this video, read the book. I'll leave a link to it down in the description of this video. Have you ever gotten somebody to change their mind on something? How did you do it? Leave me a comment and let me know. Did you get anything out of this video? Please leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe to help other people find it. This video would not be possible without the kind support of all of these awesome people right here. These are my Flow patrons over on Patreon. They and the people listed down in the description help to make this video and all the videos on this channel possible. Thank you one and all for your very generous support. And if any of you out there watching right now are not currently supporters, but you'd like to become supporters, you can do that by heading on over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and signing up. There you'll get access to a whole host of awesome rewards, but even better than that, you'll be helping me out in my mission to bring poi spinning and flow arts to the whole wide world, and occasionally sharing interesting things I've learned as in this video. So go check that out, please and thank you. And if you'd like to check out some other videos I have musing about topics like this one, I'll go ahead and include a link to a playlist of said videos down in the description, as well as up on screen if you are watching on YouTube. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to get out and flow today, and I'll see you with a new video real soon. Peace.